with some reaction from Fox's own Madeline Rivera. She's been watching the debate. She's there in Salt Lake City, and we want to go over to her right now with her first thoughts and her first reactions. Maddie, your first thoughts.
Hey, Andrew.
What is the Biden campaign saying? How did they think Senator Harris did?
Well, as you mentioned, Andrew, I think this was a much different tone than what we saw last week. It was much more civil, like you mentioned, not a lot of talking over each other. There were some moments, though, but there was still a lot of pivoting, even though it was a lot more subdued tone. There were many times when both Harris and Pence didn't really answer Susan Page's question and would just kind of pivot to whatever they wanted to talk about. So I think the American voters, though, did get a little bit more and understood a little bit more of their position as compared to last week. But yeah, just a totally different tone compared to last week's debate, Andrew.
And Maddie, obviously much more substantive than last week as well. They covered a number of topics, but wanted to talk mostly about this issue of court packing. Still didn't get a clear answer from Senator Harris, still haven't gotten a clear answer from Joe Biden. What did you make of that? And do you think possibly that the Trump campaign will roll with that in these next 27 days, that they're just not answering this question on court packing?
I'm sure we can expect to see the Trump campaign continue to press Biden and Harris on this issue. Biden, I don't think, will sway from what he said in the past. He hasn't wanted to answer this question before because he doesn't want to make a big issue out of it, because he says if he does answer that question, then you won't hear the end of it from Trump or Pence talking about this issue. So he largely wants to avoid that, and I think that's a little bit of what Harris is trying to do as well. But I'm sure a lot of critics will point to that and say, well, she didn't answer the question here, leaving some room as to what could possibly happen down the road and whether or not they will shift on this subject. So I do think that they will probably pounce on that issue, but I don't think that you will see Pence or rather Harris or Biden really touch that issue, Andrew.
No, Maddie, obviously the coronavirus was a big topic in the beginning. There was questions asked about that. But did you think it was going to be a bigger topic with everything that's going on right now, especially in the Trump administration?
No, I mean, we knew that coronavirus was going to lead off this conversation. I mean, just look at the debate setting, right? With the plexiglass set between the two candidates. COVID-19 has kind of dominated, especially Trump's COVID-19 diagnosis. That topic has kind of dominated the tone of the debate. So I'm not really surprised by that, the conversation was led off by that topic. But, they wanted to get they wanted to touch on a whole range of issues. So I'm not surprised that they touched on Supreme Court. I'm not surprised that they touched on the economy. What I am surprised about, though, was that Harris said, or rather her advisor said, she didn't really want to play fact-checking. She didn't want to play a fact-checking role here, but I found that she was actually doing more fact-checking than she thought she probably would be. For example, Pence hit her on some of Biden's plans, saying that Biden would raise taxes on people making more than $400,000. Harris checked him on that. So that was just one instance where Harris kind of stepped out of her role a little bit and decided to, call Pence out, which her advisors had said would be the challenge here, is to call Pence out, especially when he kind of packages his statements in really eloquent sentences, that it's kind of hard to catch them if you don't listen hard enough, Daytona.
And Maddie, that's right. Obviously, Pence adopts a more kind of sedate, tame tone compared with Senator Harris's really fiery zingers. I want to just read some of them that were said. If you remember that she said, talking about the China trade deal, you lost that trade war. She repeatedly invoked and it even was trending on Twitter, this refrain of "I'm speaking" when the Vice President Pence kind of was interjecting and not letting her finish. So, and as you mentioned again too, Maddie, that she was looking directly at the American people, much like Joe Biden was doing at last week's debate. So, and your thoughts on that, and also what is in store for the Biden campaign coming up this week?
Well, I feel like she definitely practiced that line, saying, well, I'm speaking, Mr. Vice President. I think that's something that she wanted to at least emphasize her role here. She wanted to, she obviously has a background as a prosecutor, so she wanted to showcase a little bit of her toughness here. But in terms of what's up next for the Biden and Harris ticket, they'll be heading to Arizona tomorrow, hoping to shore up some support among Hispanic voters. That's really a state that Biden and Trump really have been going after. It's a battleground state, so they're hoping that by going to that state, they can shore up some more minority voters who could be key in that state, Andrew.
All right, Fox's Madeline Rivera live for us in Salt Lake City, Utah, giving us all the recap of what you just saw watching that vice presidential debate. Want to take it over now, though. The dignitaries are leaving the University of Utah Kingsbury Hall. Let's watch that. We just saw one of the motorcades leave. And as Maddie mentioned, Vice President Biden and Senator Harris will be in Arizona tomorrow, Las Vegas on Friday. The president is still recuperating in the West Wing, in the residence. Don't really know yet about Mike Pence's schedule going forward, but it's 27 days before the election.
And Andrew, obviously an empty debate stage right there, but